Hi, I'm Greg Uland with Reynolds & Reynolds, and this is Connected. We are at the NADA show, and I get to sit down with one of my favorite dealers in the country, Mark Boniol. He's the dealer principal at Mark Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram in beautiful Lake Charles, Louisiana. Mark, thanks so much for coming on.
You bet.
So, Mark, I do want to give a little bit of your history. So you've been a dealer for quite a while, right? And had a fun path. And just wanted you maybe to share a little bit of your story. I think everybody's got a unique one, and you're no different in that you have a very unique story. So if you don't mind, share a little bit of your background in automotive.
Well, I walked into a car dealership 38 years ago and applied for a job because I wasn't trained to do much but entertain people. And, it was a Hyundai dealership. I thought I was applying for their Chevy dealership, and it had a name on it. And they said, "Who are you here to see?" And I said the guy's name. "Oh, he's here for Hyundai." "Well, what's a Hyundai?"
Yeah.
In 1986, nobody knew what a Hyundai was. And I've been in 5 different markets over my 38-year career. And, I've been a dealer principal since maybe 93,
okay.
I think. And
so you've seen a lot of ups and downs.
Yes, yes. And I've done a lot of different brands. I've done imports, I've done domestics. But Mark Dodge I've had for 27 years. I've had others during that time. And, pretty much, Greg, I was chasing the same paradigm that most everyone was. And that's get you 8 or 10 of these, run them up, sell them, work out your non-compete, do it all over again. And a lot of things came along during that time that seemed to get in the way of that. And eventually I came with some of the idea that I have today. And rather than 10, why not 1 the size of 10?
Yeah. So talk a little bit about that, because you do a substantial amount of volume out of your store. And, you're in Lake Charles, Louisiana. So maybe give a little context. What's the size of Lake Charles? And then on top of that, how many vehicles are you selling in a month?
So the county, or in Louisiana, parish that I'm in is like 200,000 people.
Okay.
So it's a secondary market. And we, for many years, we did, Chrysler's always separated theirs, A, B, C, D, E.
Yep.
And we were pretty much an E dealer most of the time, selling around 1,200 to 1,250, maybe a little over 1,300 in the better years, and new. And today, we sell more like 5,000 new. And so that really, some of the best things in my life happened seemingly by accident. And, I realized in 2016 that I'd reached a point of diminishing return. And I was watching a lot of second, third generation car dealers who were doing very well, better than their parents, better than their grandparents. And I was trying to figure out, what are they doing? And I felt like a lot of dealers during that time, like, have I forgotten the car business? Has the car business passed me by? And I finally brought my team together in late 2016 and said, guys, we've got to change. Here's the problem. I don't know what to change, much less how to do it. But we're going to start with analytics and digital marketing, and I don't know anything about either one. So the first really 20 months, all of 17 and most of 18 were very tough. It was almost like being in a dark room and walking into the wall with my face.
Yeah, just continuously just trying and not getting the answer, just constantly trying to find something and just not finding it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But we hung in there, and we began to get a little traction. We hired the right consultants. We hired some employees who knew a little bit more about these things. And we caught all of that,
yeah.
But we didn't stop there. There was a dealership that was pretty much an anomaly for many years named Dave Smith Motors.
Yeah.
And in a very small town in Idaho. And it was a raging subject in the mid-'90s. They were selling a gajillion
Yeah.
Chrysler and General Motor products in a town of 10,000 people.
Yep.
And
they were advertising everywhere too.
Oh, yeah.
They were on the radio in every
right.
part of the country.
Yes, they were spending a lot of money. And it was interesting because I was at a Super Bowl in '08 in Detroit, and I got to sit next to Ken Smith. And it wasn't by accident. I sat next to him because I was terribly curious about that dealership. And not that I was wanting to change at that point or anything else, but my big question was, why are you an anomaly? And others did try to imitate them. I've met some of those dealers since.
Yeah.
He told me the whole story. It was a very entertaining, hilarious, Americana success story.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed it. And he told me why they were an anomaly, and I got it. I had lived out west, and I understood everything that he was saying. Well, fast forward about 10 years later, and I woke up one day with almost an epiphany in the middle of this change I was going through.
Right.
And now we're in early 2018, and it was like a light bulb went off. Wait a minute. We're all Dave Smith Motors. Technology has caught up. And now we all could be some version of that.
Yeah.
And and I started thinking about the paradigm, how always everyone wanted a big metro dealership. They were worth so much more.
Sure.
Their planning volume was so much higher. And then in all four directions, there was somebody else 15 minutes away with an equally big planning volume. And so it was very difficult to compete, but it was also difficult for customers in a smaller market to find those dealerships. Right. And a customer had to really persist. I probably lost to the biggest one in Houston. I probably lost 25 a year to them, and I knew I could not compete on the price because of their scale. They could hold their breath longer than I could hold mine. And then it dawned on me, wait a minute, the cost of doing business in Lake Charles is less than Houston. Real estate's less.
Sure.
Everything's less. Because I have a smaller planning volume, I don't have as big a facility.
Right.
And then I began to invest in that part of the business. And as we grew and as we learned, the one thing, and we were starting to get some traction, especially in 2019, that's when things really turned. The fall of 18, but 2019. And I had in mind that I could have two dealerships. I could have a brick and mortar, and I could have a virtual dealership. And we talked about it, we planned it, talked about it with our advertising agency, who I'd been with for many years. And I said, I'm going to launch March 1st of 2020. My timing was a little rough.
Yeah, I'd say so.
But what we started before that, Greg, was we started remotely delivering cars on January 2nd. I think we were the first to do it. And it was like a Wright brothers airplane. I mean, we couldn't stay off the ground, but 80 feet, we DocuSign and all this just held together with chewing gum and baling wire. And a funny thing happened. The customers liked it.
Yeah.
They liked that we were trying to get to them.
Can I pause you right there? I want to come back to that because I love that, but I also want you to talk a little bit about, because I know some of the people in your store. I know some of the people that you've handpicked in your store, and they're pretty impressive people. So I'm hoping, and again, I want to come back to where you're at. I hate to interrupt you in this story, but can you talk a little bit about the importance of the people in this process? So as you're going through, right, and you're talking about a Wright Brothers airplane that can't get 40 feet off the ground, it's a little wobbly. How important are having the right people in place to keep that plane going and keep pushing forward? How important is that?
Oh, it's huge. I would tell you we have a 3-legged stool, and it's price. Okay. That's where we began.
Yep.
But then it's process, and then people. And if you have the lowest price because you have discovered efficiencies, and we're obsessed. Henry Ford was no more obsessed with efficiency than we are.
Yeah.
And because Sergio Marchionne was right, there's a lot of waste in the car industry. Well, I can't speak to manufacturing. I can only speak to distribution, but I am something of an expert on that, having run 7 dealerships in 5 different markets. It helps to have the best price because that's, of course, the initial hook.
Right.
And then more user-friendly processes. People go to Amazon for 2 reasons, cost and convenience.
Yep.
And initially, cost was everything. And that's why Amazon lost so much money for so long. And like the early days of Amazon, and I would really liken that to Mark Dodge, we had a lot of screaming matches upstairs in my office in managers' meetings about what was the right direction. And I allowed that. I welcome that. I don't mind being challenged. And if you read Amazon's history, a lot of times Jeff Bezos is one on one end and the other members of the executive team on the other. And there was a lot of screaming and yelling. And he held out knowing that he had to stay with price. But then the convenience thing became more and more and more important. And if you were to look at our Google reviews, you see a lot of wonderful things. In fact, the customers, this works for one reason. The customers want it to work.
Yeah. And so that goes back to where I kind of interrupted you with, customers loved it. Right. So,
yeah.
So what?
And they encouraged us, almost like a baby that gets up to walk and falls down. And you don't tell the baby, well, you're stupid. Just stay down. And they didn't. It was like they were like clapping for us. Get up, come on.
Yeah.
And I totally underestimated the hunger of people to want something different. And then, so if you've got the price, if you've got the process, if you can just have better people, that makes a difference too. And we wanted to get away from some of the stigma of the car industry.
Yeah.
Like you're going to have to come here and do what we want.
Right.
Because it's all about what we want and whatever we can get away with.
Yeah.
And you can teach an old dog new tricks. And if he's willing to learn. And one of the things you have to do what we do by being a digital dealership is you have to become a lot more transparent. In fact, you have to become 100% because it's not 4 or 5 people watching you. It's 50,000. It's 100,000. It could be 1 million people watching you online.
Yeah.
And all you have to do is compromise that a handful of times, and customers are saying, well, Mark Dodge is a fraud.
Right.
And in essence, you are at that point. So you kind of have to have a catharsis, if you will, of getting rid of some of those old bad habits. And so we've had a lot of unintended consequences. And normally you think of those as being negative. Well, all of ours were positive. We never meant to get around or away from the pugilistic side. In fact, I used to take pride in taking longer and working the customer harder. And if they complained on a survey, I wanted to give my guys a bonus. Well, you did your job. You worked them hard. And we knew that was wrong. I think any person who came to the business who wasn't raised in it goes, why does it have to be so tough?
Yeah.
Why do we just, we're making friends. We're establishing need and satisfying it. Oh, and then we're going to take you in the back and beat you up for a couple hours. And that wears everybody out.
Yeah.
And so when we changed from that and got away from that, and today Mark Dodge doesn't have car salesmen. We have product specialists. They're half concierge. They're half persuasive sales. But persuasive sales like, why buy my product rather than a competitor's?
Right.
And not downing the competitor's product, but just saying what ours will do that perhaps theirs won't do.
Yeah.
And but we don't allow them to negotiate. We don't have to. We have the best price, and we can prove it.
Yeah.
Give us 15 minutes. Where do you want to shop? Let's go shopping online.
Yeah.
Let's go to Phoenix. Let's go to Philadelphia. Let's go to Miami. Where do you want to shop? Houston? and very quickly will make you a believer in that.
Yeah.
Because you can't get around initially that issue. That's how you're going to begin something like what we did. And so we worked very, very hard on finding efficiencies that really the customer doesn't see.
Right.
And
right. So when I want to kind of hone in on, this idea of having the lowest price, because to be successful, at least from my outside perspective, you tell me if I'm wrong, you need to have some significant volume to be successful at a low price.
Right.
So I'd love to hear you talk about, how you're able to achieve such a high volume, right? You talked about price, you talked about process, you talked about people, but at the end of the day, and we've talked kind of not recorded about, your remote F&I professionals that you have and how you handle that. And your ability to scale is something that I haven't seen a lot of people do. I haven't seen a lot of people accomplish. I don't know if they've tried or not tried, but I just haven't seen it.
So would you like to know what I did?
That's what I'm, so for a direct question, what'd you do?
I invested.
Okay.
I put a pool of money together and created my own incentive pool, and I bought the business. Let me be frank. But I thought about how much would I invest in an open point?
Yeah.
How many millions of dollars would I invest in that? How much was I investing in facility?
Uh-huh.
And honestly, the customer, we need facility, but do we need these big mausoleums? I think they're as obsolete as the mall. Who would have ever thought 30 years ago that malls would empty out?
A little side note, my wife and I were talking.
Yeah.
I think a great business model for a mall, and we've looked at it because there's a mall in our town where we live, and I mean there's still a couple of stores in there, but it's pretty empty.
Right.
And we're like, this would be a great facility for an indoor sports venue. Right. There's so much demand for basketball courts and baseball and softball and soccer and football, and it's like, that might be actually a good use case for these old buildings. That's a complete side note. But anyhow, when you said malls, it just made me think of that. It's very interesting.
So I don't, one of the things, I'm in Louisiana.
Yep.
I'm in South Louisiana, where we just got a bunch of snow, which was insane.
How'd you get the snow off the cars, by the way? I wanted to ask you that.
Son. We didn't brush a single car. The temperature raised and they all thawed out. And but I've been through 4 major hurricanes.
Yeah.
I don't care if I ever see another one. The last one was a doozy, Hurricane Laura, and the customers really didn't care that we were in a construction zone. They were buying cars from us like crazy. Do we need facility? Yes. And I think that's where we compete with the likes of Tesla, is that they don't have one at all, really. Right. And you do need something, but do we need what we have today? I've come to think that we're invested in the wrong things. And we're building these almost like service stations in the 1950s. We're making these unique buildings and amusement parks, anything to get the customer to turn into ours.
Yeah.
And that's not how customers, as a young ad agent told me, the idea of people getting in the family mobile and driving up and down Car Row on Saturday shopping for cars ended probably about 20 years ago. And that's not how customers shop now.
Yeah.
And they do their research online, which is an opportunity, because I remember the days when guys showed up. Hi, how are you? Welcome to Mark Dodge. What may I show you today? Not buying today. I just need a brochure. Well, could I get your name and number? No. I'm 2 months out. I'm not buying, I told you. Yeah. I just want a brochure. Well, with their online, we actually get to talk to that customer. But it takes a different mindset. So I'm a relic. I was taught when you see a customer, he's going to buy in 3 days. You better go for it. Well, that's not really true anymore. When we talk to a customer online, they might buy in 2 months, 2 weeks, 2 days, or right now.
Yeah.
You'd never know.
You're right.
And so you have to be a lot more relational in what you're doing, and you have to have the expertise to actually know the product and be able to serve. You know, it maybe takes a little bit, a person more like a service advisor that's a consultative service advisor rather than a selling one who has an altruistic streak. And we find that works very well for what we're doing. And so today we're nothing like what we once were. And, you know, Greg, for me, I was never a creative person. I was kind of like Ray Kroc. I'll take your idea and make it better. But I was never, ever on the edge of creativity. And this felt very weird to me.
Yeah.
You know, to be out there talking with people who are truly experts in digital anything.
Yeah.
But the one thing I did not have that I could not create for myself were the tech tools, the F&I tools to do what I believed we needed to do, which was sign people remotely and to do it with integrity, to ultimately, wherever they are in the world, but also to have remote F&I.
Right.
And I know we all say, well, I'm not doing that. Who knows what they're doing? Well, do you really know what they're doing downstairs in that back office?
I suppose that's a good point because, you know, online, you can record it, right? You're not going to put a camera.
Absolutely. Because we're Zooming.
Right.
All of those are recorded.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, you can know exactly what they're doing back there. And so to be able to get to the point of doing remote e-contracting and understand remote F&I broadens my talent pool.
Yeah.
And it also, and this is a part of our scale that we haven't gotten to yet.
Okay.
If 5,000 sounds good, that's only a fraction of what I believe we can do. But again, you know, we talked about efficiency. Okay. If I have enough remote employees and I'm growing and I don't have to expand my footprint,
Yeah.
my fixed cost per employee goes straight down.
Yeah, you're right.
And I did not have the tools to do that. And Reynolds, I knew Reynolds could do it. I didn't know if they could make a business case for it because I was the only one doing it. And some of your employees, in particular, Scott Santana, your head of product development, who kind of straddles the world of engineering the solutions that you need in computing and sales.
Sure.
How's it going to work? And apparently Scott saw something, talked Chris Walsh into it. And 2.5 years later, we had remote e-contracting. And the e-contracting's been around for a long time, but no one ever adopts it. I didn't either, because your F&I department doesn't want to do it. It's different. Boss, I'm making you a ton of money. Let me keep doing what I'm doing. It's not broke. Let's keep doing it. But e-contracting gets you paid so much faster. If my contracts in transit is now about 10% of what it should be, what it was in the old paradigm. And if you do that to scale and you do that at 7-8%, whatever, that's real money out there. And of course, the reason no one chased me down the rabbit hole was my F&I gross, my PVR initially got cut in half. But I considered
which is the concern, right?
Yes, that was part of my investment. Now, we got better at it. That tool got better. Our people got better at it. And we raised it up some, but not enough. And the Holy Grail was to create a live sign process. You know, your device, DocuPad. is excellent. Honestly, I didn't think it would work. I put it in my stores, and it was $400 more with DocuPad than without. So we became real big fans of DocuPad,
Yeah.
and we had to adapt to that. My guys had to, but we made more money at it. So a live sign process is basically interactive, point and click. It's as though they're in the office. They can see the finance manager can see them, the finance manager can see what they're choosing, can see what they're signing. And, you know, some of the legal concerns, you know, I was just talking to a guy that I think is one of my heroes, and that's Justin Osterley at Route 1.
Yep.
But Justin saw what we were trying to do was for the customer. And he said, I'm in. And so they developed a chain of custody of the documents that eventually all the lenders accept today.
Yeah.
And so that was big. And I didn't do that for myself. And but Reynolds got us the live sign. And today we're working on something called Menu Touch. And I'm probably not supposed to be saying all of this.
It's all right.
But I kind of, Menu Touch sounds better than my term for it, was F&I for dummies. You know, I don't want them thinking about being a clerk.
Right.
What form do I have to pull?
Yeah.
And with the development of AI, you're able to feed down the forms
Yep.
into the deal jacket without the F&I manager having to pause and look for stuff.
Right. You just have smart forms. They load. What? And you know, you look at it, and it's so simple. You think, well, now why did it take so long to get here? Right. Like this shouldn't be going through every deal and picking out the 39 feet of paper that I got to sign and plugging it into a DocuSign, and it's so complicated when you take a step back. It's like,
I think your engineers would say it's tough. And especially most of them have never done F&I.
Sure.
So we have to collaborate together to get there. And Cheryl Muncie is another one of my heroes on more the engineering side of things.
Uh-huh.
And, you know, I just appreciate so much. And look, I'd been with Reynolds before. You went through a period where I and frankly some other customers weren't so happy. And there was a new Reynolds being created in the early 2020s. And you meant the things that you said. And I vetted everybody. And I really came to the conclusion that Reynolds, in its present day form, was my very best option. And look, I went and saw them all. They all came and saw me. And because a lot of people think that we're kind of like Wayne Gretzky, who was not the strongest, he wasn't the fastest, you know, he was skating to where the puck was going to be.
Yeah.
And some people think that and look, think about it. It's one of the biggest pinch points in the buying process is, especially if you live somewhere like Houston and getting out or Atlanta, where the traffic is such, and driving all that way to the dealership to wait 2 to 3 hours to get in F&I, then get rushed through the whole process. Customers hate it.
Right.
We don't do that. We set appointments with the customer. And the Menu Touch is going to be the part that actually makes us even more efficient, allows you to consolidate your F&I operations. I'd rather pay a few people more who are really good, who I can trust, who have the integrity that I'm looking for. And, we want the customer to see the value. We don't want to slip something by them. And we mean that. And so the F&I solution, whether someone wants to adapt what we do, there's 18,250 approximate dealerships in the United States.
Right.
And in 4 years, Mark Dodge went from number 1,800 to number 27. Explosive growth. But we have things that are different and unique. We have a sold order department. I believe we've done the most sold orders in history.
Yeah.
In 2022, we did well over 3,000 sold orders. Today, we have a truck called the RHO. I'm one of 2,600 Stellantis dealers, and I have 17% of the orders on that truck. And
It's pretty impressive.
And it's because we're set up for that. We
Right.
have a sold order department. We have a logistics department. I believe we're the first dealership in the U.S. to sell single roof, to sell in all 50 states. And we love it. We have a titling center. That's all they do, and they're very good because they're dealing with all these different DMVs, and they do a great job of it. Everybody sells across state lines, and everybody sells against competitors that are far away. I just do it on a bigger scale.
Right.
And I don't target anybody. I'm not trying to rain on anybody's parade or put anybody down. We're not tethered. The snowstorm that happened?
Right.
Okay, from Houston to New Orleans, every dealership was closed.
Yep.
Except Mark Dodge. And we signed 10 new car deals while it's snowing 6 inches in Lake Charles, which it's never done.
Right.
And of course, the city's paralyzed, but Mark Dodge wasn't. After Hurricane Laura, for 2 months, I was the only dealership open. We didn't wait to get everything perfect. We were selling cars right and left. So there's a lot of reasons to do it. But even if someone didn't want to emulate this paradigm, the F&I portion of this, getting paid faster, doing something that the customer likes so much, and then opening up, okay, we're in Lake Charles, and I have probably my lead guy that's on the ground. He likes it over in the Woodlands near Houston. I said, you want to move there? You could.
Yeah.
You want to move to Hawaii? I could use some West Coast, real West Coast time and coverage.
Yeah.
It just untethers you from a lot of things. And so I like it. It's been well worth it. The return has been unbelievably good. But the F&I portion has really, Reynolds, I just can't say enough. I owe a real debt of gratitude. And I think ultimately the whole industry will, because you're going to be the only ones having this.
Yeah, no, I definitely appreciate it, Mark. That's a great comment. Appreciate you partnering with us too. I am curious, one last thing before we wrap, what's next? Because, since I've known you, which has been better part of 4 years, probably, you've always had this forward-looking perspective where, we're here today, but that's not where we're going to be tomorrow or 2 years from now. And you're getting to the point now where a lot of these pieces that you were talking about, a couple years ago are really falling into place.
Right.
You're hitting your stride. So I guess my question is, what's the next horizon? What's next after this set of
So it's a pretty
bogeys is hit?
compelling argument that explosive growth with the mechanisms to do that, and efficiency that tackles the affordability problem that we're all facing in the car business.
Sure.
And then customer satisfaction that borders on advocacy. I read some of my reviews and I go, I'm not sure we're that good. People are very kind if they think you're on their side.
Yeah.
And if they know you are, and that's our true north. as far as the future, I think there has to be way more collaboration between us and our manufacturing partners and our lending partners and our DMS partners. Lots of collaboration. I do think AI is exciting for me. It's more serving the customer through information. I know Reynolds has a lot of initiatives working there. I think in the sold order process, at the top, when a customer's at the top of the funnel, it could feed them a lot of information that maybe your employee doesn't have 4 hours to do it.
Right.
And in AI, the chatbots we have are not adequate. They're not even close to being adequate today, but they're going to get better.
Oh, yeah.
And we have to not be afraid of this technology, but embrace it. And look, I'm the biggest dinosaur there ever was.
I don't know
how to Uber. I had to get me a limo driver today because my wife does the Uber app and stuff. I don't know any of this, but I do know how a customer and employee might use it. And I really see AI opening that sold order saves a lot of money. I don't mind saying that for me, a sold order, when I consider all of the elements of it, floor plan and commission, and so it saves on average $1,300 per transaction.
Wow.
Because the efficiency of it, we can do, one sold order specialist can do 100 deals.
Yeah.
The best salesperson could not do 50 on a regular basis. Not legitimately.
Sure.
And so we can continue to be the Amazon of the car business. That's what I see.
Yeah.
And I don't want to, I personally did not want to get left behind. And I must say, the productivity of taking that pugilistic adversarial part out of this increased productivity for my sales team more than 100%.
Wow.
They more than doubled their productivity. If they're not getting in a fight with every customer, they don't get beat up.
Right.
They don't beat up. They feel better about themselves at the end of the day. So I do think I did not mean to create a new way of distributing cars, but here we are. And for the life of me, I can't see the end of it. I think everything has a natural end.
Right.
I can't see the end of this. Now, look, I've still got my brick and mortar.
Right.
And I'm going to keep doing my brick and mortar business. But the explosive part is the sold order and being able to reach customers everywhere. And it's easier today than it was in the beginning. It was like I was selling chocolate to people who've never heard of the word.
Right.
And that was the biggest problem with it. But I really think that the AI component, the refinement of the processes we have today, once you taste this chocolate, I don't think you'll go back. And we invest in a lot of things in the car business.
Yeah.
The cost of brick and mortar is very expensive today. Cost of land is very expensive today. I'm down to this. The only things I feel an absolute need to invest in is the customer, the employee, and technology. Anything else, if I could get by, I mean, Sam Walton started doing unfinished retail spaces and warehouse pricing, right? Sam's Club, we call it.
Yeah.
And people ate it up.
Right.
So the brick and mortar there, but isn't it interesting that Amazon didn't put Walmart out of business and Walmart didn't keep Amazon out of business, and they've actually both moved a little bit more toward the center.
You're right.
So I think that blend of these things is where this thing is ultimately going.
Yep, I agree. Well, Mark, I could talk to you for hours. We have at times talked for hours, but
right.
I want to be super respectful of your time, especially here. I know you got a lot going on at the show, kind of in and out quick, but I really appreciate you coming on and chatting with me. Anything we didn't talk about that we should, or any questions I should have asked you that I didn't?
Well, in Louisiana, we spell go, Geaux, go Reynolds.
Love it. Well, Mark Boniol, thank you so much for joining me. Really appreciate it, and I can't wait to talk to you again.
Thank you.